What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we've got even more DLC 2 stuff to talk about. So we actually have an overview for the DLC that gives us some information about the raid lair that we'll be getting. On top of this, we have the confirmation that Nokris will feature inside of this expansion, which I'll talk about in a moment. It's looking incredibly likely that Sleeper Simulant is going to be returning. I'll talk about that in a moment as well. We've got information about exotic Masterworks, a new preview of the Hardlight coming in the May update, and a bunch of other stuff, so let's jump straight into it. Firstly, we now have the official information from Bungie about DLC 2, of course called Warmind. So this reads, Expansion 2 Warmind continues your Guardian's journey with an all-new story. Anna Bray, a Guardian thought long lost, searches for a connection to her past, one that could be lost forever on the polar ice caps of Mars. As the Golden Age warsats begin slamming into the ice, the glaciers begin to thaw, revealing the core of the Warmind, Rasputin, and an ancient Hive army bent on its destruction. Now free the Hive swarm in service to their god Zol, help Anna discover her past and destroy the Hive's gargantuan worm god before it's too late. So that is incredibly interesting. I don't think any of us were really anticipating that we'd be getting this much Hive inside of this expansion. But when we look at the features for the DLC, it does say that it will include an all-new raid lair called the Spire of Stars. So Spire of Stars will be the name of raid lair 2 inside of this update, and Merpo on Reddit actually pointed something very interesting out. When you look at the top of the Leviathan, you do have the tower, and then you have two artificial suns on top of the ship as well. And there's a whole backstory with Callus there, which is pretty interesting. The point being though, Spire of Stars, it makes sense that we're going to be visiting the top of the ship, or potentially the palace on top of Leviathan inside of this lair. So that's going to be immensely interesting. Of course, we don't know how this will potentially tie in with the story, or whether it's going to be a completely separate thing, which it sounds like it has some potential to be. But there we have it, Spire of Stars is the new raid lair, almost certainly taking place on the top of the Leviathan ship. Up next though, I'm going to talk about Sleeper Simulant. So a lot of people speculated maybe we'd get Sleeper inside of this DLC, but actually there's something which very much indicates this could be happening. So there's this one particular image right here, and this comes from the PlayStation Store. It wasn't inside of the press kit or anything like that. And we've got two Guardians right there, a Warlock on the left and a Titan on the right. If you look at the weapon the Warlock on the left is actually holding, it does look an awful lot like Sleeper Simulant. Now of course there are a lot of Warmind themed weapons inside of this expansion. Of course, the weapon on the Titan's back actually has a pretty similar model to the Sleeper Simulant itself. However, if you look at the barrel of the weapon on the Titan's back, it does have this straight stretch where there isn't really any ornamentation or anything like that, which of course you can see the kind of Warmind shaped grids on the weapon that the Warlock is holding. And so if you take a look at Sleeper Simulant itself, it does bear a passing resemblance. Also, if we look at a 3D model from the front of Sleeper Simulant, you can see that it actually is the exact same shape kind of in the barrel of the weapon. And here's where we get even more kind of conclusive evidence. So originally I was talking with some friends and we were like, well, why have we got this blue kind of laser on the front of the weapon? But before too long we remembered that power weapons in D2 actually all have a kind of light on the front of the weapon. And of course you can identify this in PvP. Shotguns always have the white light, and interestingly linear fusion rifles actually come with a blue light on the front. And that of course indicates even more that this is probably Sleeper Simulant. So personally, I'm pretty much 100% confident that that is Sleeper Simulant or some variation of it. You have to let me know what you guys think, but I think it's pretty conclusive myself. I could be wrong. Up next though, we do have confirmation that Nokris will actually feature in this expansion. Now, I'm not a lore genius or anything like that. There isn't actually that much information on Nokris as far as I'm aware. But firstly, there is a scannable on the Dreadnought in Destiny 1, where you have Nokris on the one side and Crota on the other side. And this is right where you go into Oryx's chamber. It's obvious that Nokris is a very high-ranking Hive enemy, but inside of the press pack for Destiny 2, in the Strike section, there is actually some images named Nokris. And so we can see that Nokris does look an awful lot like Oryx himself, so certainly a pretty interesting enemy there. Nokris is a character that a lot of folks anticipated would be a pretty big deal at some point in Destiny's future, so to have it as a kind of Strike enemy is pretty interesting. Also though, there are more images inside of the campaign folder inside of the press kit, and that could mean that the Strike for Nokris is actually part of the story as well, or it could indeed mean that there is going to be a much more significant part of the core story featuring the Hive, especially when you consider that in that description it does say help Anna discover her past and destroy the Hive's gargantuan worm god before it's too late. Definitely some food for thought. Either way, you've now seen Nokris. Moving on, I want to talk about Masterwork exotics. This is something we haven't had too much information about just yet, but when it comes to Masterwork exotics, they're actually known as catalysts for exotic weapons. So in general, these will be earned just like quests. On each weapon, there will be the Masterwork slot, and the quests are kind of secretive in that they have a requirement to unlock or gain access to. So for example, the new Huckleberry SMG Masterwork reads, found through heroism in the most challenging adventures, so it's clearly going to be unlocked by completing heroic adventures. Maybe you have to do multiple ones or beat them in a certain time. It's basically going to be a secret until someone works out the exact requirements, which is pretty cool. I think that's a really nice additional layer for exotic weapons. And then obviously there is the power element here. So according to PlayStation Access, they teased that they'd heard the Vigilance Wing Masterwork will make the weapon full auto. That is according to PlayStation Access. That is the only source I have for this so far, but a full auto Vigilance Wing would be positively ridiculous inside of the Crucible. In addition to this, they also spoke about the Crimson, and they said the Catalyst version of this increases range to 100%, so it would give it a maxed out range stat, which again is pretty crazy. So if this is the kind of stuff we can expect to see from exotic masterworks, or catalysts as they're actually known, then this is going to be pretty significant both in terms of sandbox and providing some level of progression with these weapons. And once again, I think it's really cool that they're somewhat secretive. They give you a rough idea, but then you have to kind of play around and try different things to figure out exactly what the requirement to unlock these masterwork catalysts is. Next though, Bungie give us a preview of what the Hardlight is going to look like after the May update. Of course, there's a whole bunch of exotic changes, and this is going to be one of them, so let's check out the clip. So as you can see, Hardlight is now capable of swapping elements on the fly, so you don't have to go into the kind of perk tree on the weapon, you can simply swap Void, Arc, Solar. On top of this though, John Wisniewski confirmed in the Bungie stream, Hardlight's ricochet rounds actually do double damage, so if you ricochet a round from the weapon and it connects with an enemy, it's going to do double the base damage that it normally would, which is pretty significant, and can definitely make for some interesting plays and uses for the weapon, I suppose. One final thing I wanted to mention would be the PlayStation exclusive stuff for this expansion. So there is going to be more PS exclusives with Warmind. We don't know when they will become available for all players on all platforms, but Warmind will include an exclusive strike called the Insight Terminus. And this actually isn't set on Mars, this will be set on Nessus, which is pretty interesting, and it's going to be another Vex strike. So the description is that Zavala needs a team of Guardians to break into a Vex tomb on Nessus that has been overrun by the Cabal, defeat the powerful prison commander before he can take over the Vex gateway network and reap the rewards. So that'll certainly be pretty interesting. Of course, there is a strike on all platforms as well, and that's going to be the one with Nokris. But in addition to the strike exclusive, there will also be a new armor set for each class. So Warlocks, Hunters, and Titans will each get a new armor set that you can see on screen right here. So if you're wondering if there will be any PS exclusives in this expansion, unfortunately there will be. I've never personally been a huge fan. I suppose it's okay if you're over on PlayStation. It's just worth bearing in mind that some of the content here is going to be exclusive to PlayStation. But there we go guys, another summary of some pretty interesting stuff relating to the Warmind DLC. I'd definitely be interested to hear what you guys think about the stuff we spoke about in this video. I'm personally pretty convinced that Sleeper is going to be coming back, or at least that is a weapon themed, directly around the Sleeper Simulant in some way. I think it's really cool that we're going to visit the palace on top of the Leviathan this time around in the raid lair, or at least presumably that's how it's going to work, the Spire of Stars, it sounds exactly like what it looks like. On top of this, Nokris is definitely going to make for an interesting story. I'm hoping that the story this time around is going to be a little bit, darker than what we've seen so far in D2. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section as always, guys. I hope you found this video interesting. If you have, a like is very much appreciated. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit subscribe. I'm going to be covering everything related to the DLC. And of course, when it drops, I'll have guides and all of that kind of stuff for you guys. So if you want to stay up to date, be sure to hit subscribe. Also turn on that notification bell as well if you don't want to miss anything. But for now, I appreciate you watching as always, and I will catch you guys very soon.